Welcome to the Smart Keys podcast. Right now, as you listen to this, 60% of all global online sales are happening on a piece of glass smaller than a paperback book.
Yeah, which was over $2.2 trillion last year alone. It's crazy.
Exactly. And the metrics we are tracking show that roughly 70% of the global population is operating via smartphones.
Right, and current forecasts are pointing to mobile e-commerce hitting nearly $3.4 trillion by 2027.
It is just staggering. We are looking at a commercial landscape where the traditional boundaries of the cash register have completely dissolved. I mean, the transaction is no longer a destination. It's a continuous ambient environment sitting right in your pocket.
Well, the structural shift there is it's massive. You know, the industry spent a decade treating mobile as a secondary channel. It was like a scaled-down version of the desktop experience.
Yeah, just a smaller screen, basically.
Right. But the intersection of highly capable hardware and ubiquitous high-speed networks has totally inverted that hierarchy. So the smartphone is now the primary commercial interface for the human race.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. And it requires a fundamentally different architecture, not just in UI design, but in back-end infrastructure and, honestly, behavioral psychology.
Which is exactly our mission today. We are doing a deep dive into a really insightful article by Felix Römer from smartkeys.org titled Mobile Commerce Trends Capturing the Smartphone Shopper.
Such a good piece.
It really is. If you are a modern professional, a developer, or a business leader tasked with capturing digital market share, understanding the mechanics of this shift is mandatory. I mean, Romer's article is essentially a playbook for surviving and dominating the mobile-first economy.
Absolutely. It's a must-read.
Okay, let's unpack this, because while that $3.4 trillion projection establishes the macro opportunity, the microdata reveals a massive performance divide based on exactly where on the device the user is shopping.
Right. The environment matters.
Exactly. Specifically, I'm talking about the conversion gap between the mobile web and dedicated applications.
Yeah, and that performance gap is usually where legacy businesses bleed the most capital.
Right.
You know, a responsive mobile website is often assumed to be sufficient.
You just make it fit the screen and you're good.
Exactly. But the telemetry shows that dedicated mobile apps convert at a rate roughly 157% higher than mobile websites.
No.
Yeah, it's a huge delta.
What I found structurally fascinating in the data is the cart abandonment rate. Because on the mobile web, abandonment reaches an abysmal 97%.
It's brutal.
You are losing almost every single user who adds an item to a cart. But inside a dedicated app, that abandonment rate compresses down to around 20%.
And the average order value essentially doubles. We really have to look at the mechanics driving that behavior.
So what's causing that massive divide?
Well, the mobile web is inherently volatile. Users are dealing with expiring session cookies, network latency during browser redirects.
Which always seems to happen at the worst time.
Always. And there's this constant high-friction demand to re-authenticate or re-enter payment details. Like if a user switches tabs to check their bank balance, the browser might just refresh and wipe their cart entirely.
Oh, I hate when that happens. It's so frustrating.
Right. An application, by contrast, is a stateful, controlled environment. It leverages biometric authentication, via Face ID or fingerprints.
Which is instant.
Exactly. It maintains persistent carts, utilizing predictive search and context-aware caching. Basically, the application removes the cognitive load of the transaction.
So browsing the mobile web is essentially like walking into a massive, poorly lit warehouse where you have to hunt for your own items, remember the layout, and then pull out your ID and credit card for every single aisle you visit.
That is a perfect analogy.
Whereas a dedicated app operates more like a concierge. You walk in, it instantly recognizes you, it dynamically reorganizes the shelves based on your historical purchasing data, and it already has your payment tokens on file.
Spot on.
But I am going to push back on the strategy here a little bit. The user acquisition cost to get someone to actually download an application, surrender their home screen real estate, and opt into push notifications.
Yeah.
It's astronomical. I mean, most consumers spend 90% of their screen time in just a handful of primary apps. If the barrier to entry is that high, doesn't over-indexing on app development risk alienating the top of the funnel? Like, is the mobile web just a lost cause?
What's fascinating here is how Römer addresses that exact tension.
Yeah.
Because it's not an either-or proposition. It is a sequential funnel.
Okay, walk me through that.
So the mobile web is fundamentally optimized for discovery. It relies on search engine indexing, inbound social links, and low-barrier entry points.
Right.
Your strategy must be to capture that initial intent on the web, execute a highly optimized first transaction, and then immediately leverage that post-purchase goodwill to incentivize the application download.
Ah, I see. So the web handles the acquisition.
Exactly. And the app functions as the engine for retention, lifetime value, and loyalty.
Which means the design philosophy for both environments has to respect the physical constraints of the hardware. The sales data from 2024 underscores this beautifully.
The hardware divide is so clear now.
It really is. The industry moved roughly $418 billion in smartphones last year, compared to only $69 billion in tablets.
Wow.
Yeah, so the market has overwhelmingly chosen the form factor that requires single-handed, thumb-driven navigation.
And designing for thumbs requires a complete overhaul of traditional UI patterns. You cannot just scale down a desktop grid.
No, it just doesn't work.
Right. We're talking about mapping the ergonomic reach of the human thumb and placing critical actions within that specific arc.
So no more tiny text links in the top left corner.
Exactly. That means utilizing larger tap targets to prevent misclicks, which, heavily degrade user trust. It means engineering sticky calls to action.
Like ensuring the add to cart button stays anchored to the bottom of the screen?
Yes, regardless of scroll depth. Because you are designing for a user who is likely walking, distracted, or operating with a fraction of their attention span.
So we have engineered the interface for thumb mechanics, and we have successfully moved the user from discovery to intent. They have added the product to their cart.
Right, the critical moment.
That brings us to the ultimate choke point of the entire system, because the transaction itself assumes that the customer already knows what they want. But any friction between that intent and the final receipt is where that 97% abandonment rate happens.
Yeah, the checkout flow is where you translate desire into revenue. Historically, mobile checkout required a user to manually input a 16-digit PAN, an expiration date, a CVV, and a multi-line shipping address.
On a virtual keyboard measuring 3 inches across.
It's an ergonomic nightmare, but digital wallets have completely circumvented this limitation.
And the global adoption metrics definitely reflect that pivot. There are currently 2.8 billion active mobile wallets globally.
Which is a huge chunk of the market.
It is. And the article cites some highly actionable data from BigCommerce on the impact of this. An enterprise store deploying a single-page checkout that combines Apple Pay, Google Pay, and PayPal correlates with an incredible 70.8% checkout conversion rate.
That is massive.
So what does this all mean? Should businesses just slap every single payment option on their checkout page, like 20 different one-click buttons?
This raises an important question regarding Hicks' law and decision fatigue. Presenting a user with a wall of payment options actually degrades the conversion rate.
Because it's overwhelming.
Exactly. It forces the brain to evaluate too many paths. The architectural goal is streamlining. You implement the universally adopted wallets, Apple, Google, PayPal, and dynamically render additional options like specific buy now, pay later services based on the geolocation data of the user's IP address.
Ah, so you deliver relevance, not sheer volume.
Exactly.
But speed without trust is equally detrimental. If the user doesn't trust the interface, the one-click speed is irrelevant because they will simply abandon the session.
Absolutely. Trust is established through visible, verifiable security architecture. You need to display PCI compliance badges, but more importantly, you have to execute what the industry calls permission hygiene.
Permission hygiene, I like that term. What does that look like in practice?
When you integrate a digital wallet, the cryptographic tokenization actually removes the liability of storing the credit card data on your own servers. You are simply receiving a secure token.
Which is much safer.
Way safer. Communicating that security to the user is paramount. Furthermore, permission hygiene means strictly limiting data collection. You only ask for the specific data strings required to execute the immediate transaction.
Right, because if you force a user to create an exhaustive profile with their birthday and gender just to buy a pair of socks...
You have broken their trust.
Yeah, and introduced unnecessary friction.
Exactly.
So the mechanics of the transaction are streamlined, the cryptographic tokens are securing the checkout, and the UI is mapped to the ergonomics of the thumb. But that assumes the user has already arrived at the storefront.
Which is a big assumption these days.
It is. What I find incredibly compelling in Römer's analysis is the structural change in how intent is manufactured in the first place. The era of typing a query into a search engine is being rapidly eclipsed by what the text identifies as feed-first buying.
Yeah, the discovery phase has completely decentralized. Social commerce integrates the transaction layer directly into the content consumption layer.
So they aren't even leaving the app.
Right. Users are no longer leaving an application to research a product. The media feed itself acts as a dynamic, personalized storefront.
And Accenture's projections place the value of social commerce at roughly $1.2 trillion by 2025.
But that massive number masks a very steep regional divergence.
Yeah, the APAC market is operating on a completely different timeline. I mean, in several Asian markets, over 80% of consumers are already executing purchases natively within social platforms.
Largely driven by live stream commerce and deep integration with super apps.
Right. The U.S. market is lagging in that specific adoption curve.
It is, but the upside for Western markets is significant. It just requires brands to rethink their data architecture. The content must be shoppable at the metadata level. And, beyond social feeds, discovery is also moving away from visual text entirely.
Oh, like voice search.
Yes. The data shows voice commerce generating approximately $40 billion in 2023, processing over 1 billion monthly voice searches.
Which means the SEO strategy has to pivot from optimizing for short-tail keywords to optimizing for natural language processing.
Exactly.
Because a user typing might search, like, best running shoes, but a user speaking to their device will ask, hey, what are the best running shoes for flat feet under $150?
And your product data architecture has to parse and respond to that conversational intent.
Right. And speaking of intent, we cannot analyze discovery without diving into spatial computing and augmented reality.
Oh, AR has matured far past the experimental phase. It's really taken off.
It has. Brands across cosmetics, apparel, and furniture are leveraging spatial computing to bridge the tactile gap of digital commerce.
Yeah, like Sephora and Allbirds.
Exactly. The Harvard Business Review data in the source material indicates that users engaging with AR try-on features spend 20.7% more time on the platform and view 28% more inventory.
That engagement lift is incredible.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because from an operational standpoint, deploying AR isn't just a top-of-funnel engagement metric. It is a highly effective mechanism for mitigating the most destructive force in e-commerce margins.
Reverse logistics.
Yes, returns. The cost of processing a return shipping, inspecting, repackaging, and restocking it can completely wipe out the profit of the sale.
Easily. But spatial computing actively builds purchasing confidence.
Right, because if a user can use their device's LiDAR scanner to accurately place a true-to-scale, color-accurate 3D model of a sofa in their living room,
the probability of them returning that item drops dramatically. You are utilizing the hardware to collapse the delta between expectation and reality. It is. And powering all of these features, the AR rendering, the social feed algorithms, the conversational voice search, are back-end AI models.
which are working constantly in the background.
Exactly. We're seeing a massive deployment of AI in dynamic merchandising. The system analyzes the user's real-time behavioral telemetry, their past purchase history, and their current geographic context to rearrange the digital storefront instantly.
Almost like magic.
Right. The AI predicts the demand and surfaces the exact product that correlates with the highest probability of conversion at that specific millisecond.
So the digital timeline from initial inspiration to completed transaction has literally been compressed into seconds.
It's hyper-accelerated.
But this hyper-acceleration online is creating a fascinating collision with physical retail spaces. I mean, the digital and physical environments are no longer segregated channels. They are heavily entangled.
Yeah, we are operating in a hybrid phygital reality now.
A phygital reality, yes. Which brings us to the strategic threat of showrooming.
Showrooming. This phenomenon effectively turns your expensive physical retail footprint into a free demonstration center for your online competitors.
Right, because the consumer physically interacts with your inventory, assesses the quality, and then immediately uses their smartphone to source the identical product from a digital competitor at a lower price point.
Completely bypassing your point of sale.
And the traditional defensive response from brick-and-mortar retailers was to try and block signal in the store or obscure product numbers.
It just frustrates the customer.
Exactly. But the source material outlines a much more aggressive, integrated counter strategy. You cannot fight the device. You have to absorb it into your physical retail loop.
The physical environment must be digitally mapped. You counter showrooming through absolute inventory transparency and real-time pricing synchronization across all channels.
So the prices match everywhere.
Right. But more aggressively, you deploy physical anchors, like QR codes, directly on the retail shelving.
Right. So a customer scans the code, and instead of searching the open web, they are instantly routed into your controlled digital ecosystem.
Exactly. The code surfaces high-resolution technical specifications, aggregated user reviews, and crucially, a one-click checkout link utilizing their digital wallet.
So they complete the digital transaction while physically standing in the aisle, and they walk out of the store with the product.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, executing that kind of seamless omnichannel transaction demands exceptional operational resilience.
Oh, for sure.
Because if a customer is standing in your physical store, attempts to scan your QR code, and your mobile web infrastructure buckles under peak server load,
You have permanently lost that transaction.
you have. The back-end architecture is the foundation of the entire strategy.
And the article provides very specific directives on how to engineer that resilience. It basically requires moving the processing power as close to the user as possible.
Which is achieved by deploying a robust content delivery network, or CDN. A CDN caches your storefront's heavy assets, high-resolution product images, video files, AR models on edge servers distributed globally.
So when a user requests your page, the data is delivered from a server physically located just a few miles away from their device.
Exactly, drastically reducing latency. Furthermore, the integration of progressive web apps, or PWAs, completely changes the nature of the browser itself.
Because PWAs essentially allow a website to behave with the performance characteristics of a native application.
Yeah, they utilize service workers to cache essential resources directly onto the user's device.
And that edge caching means the storefront loads almost instantaneously, regardless of network conditions.
It even allows for offline functionality.
Wait, really? Offline shopping?
Yeah. If a user loses their 5G connection while riding a subway, they can continue to browse the cache catalog, add items to their cart, and the PWA will automatically sync and process the transaction the moment the network connection is restored.
Oh, wow. So you're building an infrastructure that is practically immune to traffic spikes and network volatility.
Exactly. It is treating the digital architecture with the exact same rigor and capital investment as the concrete foundation of a flagship retail store.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground navigating Felix Römer's strategic analysis today, so let's distill this into a core operating philosophy for you to deploy.
Let's do it.
The overarching playbook demands that every digital touchpoint be relentlessly optimized to turn casual browsing into a secure, confident transaction with the absolute minimum number of taps.
The hierarchy of action is clear. Utilize the highly discoverable mobile web to acquire the user, but heavily invest in a dedicated, stateful application to drive long-term retention and lifetime value.
Right. And eliminate the friction of legacy payment gateways by integrating digital wallets that leverage tokenized security.
And treat spatial computing and AI-driven dynamic merchandising not as marketing experiments, but as core logistical tools to boost buyer confidence and eradicate return rates.
It is really about engineering a commerce ecosystem that exists dynamically around the consumer, adapting to their physical context and their behavioral data in real time.
It's the new normal.
It is. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We started this deep dive by discussing how the physical boundaries of the cash register have dissolved. The point of sale is now everywhere, all the time, embedded in our devices.
The architecture of commerce is completely decentralized.
Exactly. If our media feeds, our spatial computing interfaces, and our physical retail aisles are all functioning as instantaneous, frictionless storefronts, how long until the very concept of a traditional checkout cart becomes obsolete?
That's a wild thought.
Are we rapidly accelerating toward a future of entirely ambient automatic transactions where the simple biometric confirmation of intent, like a glance or a voice command, is all it takes for the purchase to simply happen in the background?
An economy governed entirely by seamless predictive intent. The technological infrastructure for that reality is already being laid.
It is a profound shift to consider. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Smart Keys podcast. We highly value your time and attention as we navigate these complex industry shifts.
We hope this analysis equips you to refine your own digital infrastructure and strategy.
Please hit the subscribe button so you never miss a deep dive into the forces shaping the modern business landscape. And to extract even more granular insights, I highly encourage you to read the full source text by Felix Römer. We have placed the direct link to smartkeys.org right in the show notes for your convenience. Until next time, keep analyzing the data and keep building for the future.